Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here to take a look at this week's preseason game against the Commanders on the defense in particular. Joining me to do that is Brandon Croxton. Brandon, how are you doing?
Great, Ken. It's always good to talk to you.
A pleasure talking football, always with you too. The news, obviously, the big news is that the streak is over. It was obviously a much more important streak nationally than we knew based on everybody's national reaction to this preseason game last night.
Right, exactly. It was really funny listening to Troy Aikman and Buck talk about it, and then going on to Twitter and Warren Sharp, who I think is a brilliant NFL analyst. It was he had a funny emoji of somebody sitting on the edge of their seat at the end of the game, just watching the game. So yeah, it was funny that it would all this came to head on a national TV game like that.
Yeah, it was to look at the Redskins, they had just won the Super Bowl to end that game, and they kind of better have won the Super Bowl because they played everybody in this game. The Ravens sat 35 players for this game. The Ravens did, and the Commanders sat 12. So quite a commitment to winning this game, and they certainly running up and down the field like they won big.
Well, yeah, they've been doing so much winning on this past couple of decades that I can't imagine this being that big of a win for them. But yeah, congratulations to Washington on ending the streak.
All right. Well, they did contribute 5 games to the streak on the way, so that was kind of nice too. So it was their turn. Anyway, Harbaugh made a good point and then a not such a good point after the game, basically blaming the media for saying these games were meaningless. Well, I've never said that. I wouldn't spend all this time, analyzing these games if I really thought that were true. But anyway, I don't think he should feel the need to reach out and slap the media around like that. But he did say also that he was upset. He was not upset. He was, disappointed that the streak is over. But on the other hand, they played very well all the way, and that was what he really wanted to see.
Yeah, Harbaugh is a competitor, and he's trying to win, whether he's got his first string, second, or third string out there. And I really, admire the culture that he sets forth, and being so competitive and trying to win, at everything, and that just sets the tone for how the team plays during the season. And this is just part of it. He expects, whether you're a starter or a backup, he expects you to play well and compete every play, and you have to respect that mentality.
Yeah, very much. And this was a difficult, when you look at what the Ravens were up against in trying to continue the streak. First of all, they had to play a lot of the Washington ones, which no problem. Hey, they're going to put that ones out there. That's fine. But their backup quarterback is Jacoby Brissett. And he came in the game in the third quarter. I'm like, this is incredible. This is about as good a backup quarterback as you can get in this league right now. And your starter shouldn't be playing. Your number 2 should be playing to start the game. And so at this point in the game, you should have one of those guys that the Ravens have liked to pick on for a lot of this time. And they did end up picking on Jacoby Brissett. He didn't do a damn thing for them.
No, yeah, you threw that interception. It was a terrible throw. And yeah, I think he led them to a field goal, but that was pretty much it. There was not a lot going on with Brissett in there. Yeah.
It was a very lopsided game in terms of the snap count. So the Ravens defense by the end, extremely tired, with basically, since it's a weird situation because they had enough players certainly that they didn't have to get people tired. But since they retire in stages, they are left with only a few players at the end of the game who have to play a whole bunch of snaps consecutively. And also some linemen who played, way more snaps than you'd ever expect. You played college football. Do you remember what's the most snaps you ever played?
Oh, I was back up my whole time. So I got, I guess about 20 snaps was the most snaps I ever got in a game against Morehouse College. But
okay.
yeah, that's I did not get a lot of snaps
Okay.
myself, so I never had the difficulty of playing on a winded, playing 50 snaps and being winded and tired in the end of a fourth quarter in college. That was not an issue for me.
Okay, fair enough. Probably if you went back to high school, there'd have been more
Yeah,
difficulty with you having to stay on
yeah.
the field. Were you a two-way player in high school?
Yes, I played offense and defense, mostly defense, but
Okay.
some offense as well, though. Yeah.
All right. Fair
Hmm.
enough. So let's see. What else do we need to talk about? The 81-49 snap count battle. That's about as bad as it ever gets. The Ravens, of course, during the Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson era and during the Greg Roman era specifically, have been
Hmm.
extremely good about winning snap count and reducing snap count in general, but winning snap count usually because they've been very efficient in terms of generating first downs. To me, that was one of the big stories. The other component of that, the other related component, is just how weak the pass rush was for the entire game. And I think
Hmm.
part of that was having to rush the passer for a number of consecutive plays.
Right. Exactly. It was. I I think especially at the end, they they I don't I think the defensive line and probably Moon and I can't think of the other outside linebacker that was in there. It seemed like they were in there for the entire fourth quarter and just going snap after snap and just rushing. It just kind of wears you out, and by the end you could see they were going three-quarter speed almost, just trying to get out there, and they just ran out of gas. Yeah.
They only rotated through three defensive linemen also through most of the game after, let's see, beginning with the first drive of Q3 anyway. They played only Bots, Caesar, and Nichols for the entire rest of the game. And that's three positions potentially you have to cover on some plays, but it's two on most. And then those guys were in the game even before then. So they played a lot of snaps, and they played a lot of snaps consecutively. Which was difficult for them. They didn't do much in terms of pass rush. Caesar got a quarterback hit and I think also what was it? Quarterback hit and a pressure? No, pass defense. That's what it was.
Hmm.
So he looked okay, but the pass rush in general just incredibly weak, and that led to some oddball pass rush strategies down the stretch, which we do not normally see from the Ravens, certainly of the McDonald era.
Hmm. I yeah, I think several times they rushed five, 6 and 7, going all out blitz. It reminded me of the of the Rex Ryan days
Mm-hmm.
and the Wink days. Just they were sending everybody. Early on in the game, I don't think they really blitzed that much. They had a lot of simulated pressure where they brought a safety
Yeah.
or linebacker and dropped somebody, but we're only rushing four. But yeah, at the end, you could tell they were going after the quarterback, just you know, trying to get any kind of pressure and force the quarterback into a mistake. And fortunately, that mistake never really came.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got one nice sack forced fumble out of Simpson, but the ball got out of bounds on him, and so they didn't have a
Yeah.
chance to recover that. But yeah, otherwise they also missed a couple sacks in this game, which was very frustrating because the pass rush had some
Hmm.
chances to get home. But did Ardarius miss a second sack? Moon missed a sack.
Yeah.
Tavius
Ardarius
Robinson
must.
missed a sack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ardarius had, he had the corner and he had him almost dead to rights, and he just slipped, and
Mhm.
that allowed the quarterback to escape. And yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So frustrating. Going back to that last drive again, because this was one of the things I had in my article today on the defense was looking at what happened on that final drive. But I'm gonna give you the rushes by play. So the first play they rushed 5, dropped 0 with a blitz, and they got a quarterback hit. Second one, 4-2 pass rush, and that's what you're talking about with simulated pressure, where they line up 6 guys at the line of scrimmage, but 2 of them drop. And this is actually,
Hmm.
it was more complex than that because they had a blitz from off the line of scrimmage. Welch and Moon dropped from the line of scrimmage, and they only end up rushing
Hmm.
4. But the ball got out quickly on that play. Then a 6-0 pass rush where The Commanders still got ample time and space. That's not acceptable, by the way, to rush 6 and not get that. Then a 5-0 rush, another 4-2 rush, so big simulated pressure with a double drop. That's where they got the sack fumble -9 by Simpson. Then they had a 4-3 pass rush. That's very exotic to have 3 guys drop off the line of scrimmage, but they did it on that play. Then they went to an 8-0 pass rush on 4th and 11. You don't see that very often because the other team has. I'm sorry, say again?
I said, holy moly. I didn't realize they rushed 8 that play.
Yeah, well, there's more of that. Then the very next play, after they gave up the DPI by Mayfield on 4th and 11, they rushed 7-0 on the next play. And they blitzed Lucien. And even on that 7-0 play, they still got ample time and space. That's 6-0 is unacceptable, but 7-0, no way. I mean, and then a 6-1 pass rush with bots dropping. So now you've gone to the last refuge of a scoundrel, trying to confuse the other team so much that you leave yourself with a lineman in coverage. Mm-hmm. Not exactly, what you'd want.
Right, exactly. Unless you're Calais Campbell, dropping a lineman into coverage is you really just want to shock the quarterback and to have him like, what the heck is that? And maybe the rush can get to you, but the lineman's not going to do much for you.
Tall defender generally. A Brent Urban. Can he do something for you in? I know James Urban can't. He's kind of a short guy, but Brent Urban, can he do something for you as far as moving along the grain of the zone? Say, if he moves laterally to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he reading the eyes and maybe getting into a lane and getting those hands up. He's tall and long enough. He could possibly tip a pass or, distract a receiver just long enough. But he's not going to do much more than that.
Yeah, I would think that like a Hamilton with his size, and he's large and very long arms, that he does a very good job. Probably he's a more fearful presence to the quarterback anyway, but some of it's putting the fear in the quarterback and altering his throw to try and make sure that he gets it over that initial level of the defense. So if you're lined up reasonably well, then the quarterback sometimes will misfire.
Right. Yep.
All right. So anyway, I think we were down to the 7-0 where they got ATS. It's not over yet. A 6-1 pass rush, the next one, Bratz dropping. We did that one. Then a 5-1 pass rush with Tavius Robinson dropping. We haven't seen much of that. Hoping that Tavius Robinson would be a Sam linebacker. This isn't the place to test it out, but anyway, 5-1. Then a 3rd and 4, they did a 6-0 pass rush. Ball was out quickly anyway. Then they did an 8-0 pass rush with 26 seconds left. Ball was out quick. That was a ball that was eventually slapped free by Washington on the play he got hurt. Another 8-0 pass rush on 2nd and 10. Ball out quick and complete. Another 8-0 pass rush on 3rd and 10. Ball out quick, pass right for 8. Yeah, that set up the field goal, cut it from 57 to 49 yards. And I don't know about you. I was still excited to hope that field goal went wide, but that was a really extreme set of pass rushes to make up for a very, very tired defense on the field.
Yeah, you're really just trying, because Commanders also threw the ball 50 times that game. So your corners and safeties were probably very exhausted as well. Ardarius, I think he played pretty much the whole game, I think. And Caillou Blue Kelly, he played much of the game, and same with Mayfield and somebody else. Yeah,
Lucien at safety.
Yeah, Lucien played, I think, pretty much the whole game. So they had a lot. I'm sure they were all exhausted by the end of that game, and they did a good job of keeping everybody in front of them, but it's just tough to cover for so many plays and like that. So it's just, you just hope to force the quarterback into some kind of mistake, either a sack or just a bad throw, and they just couldn't get it.
Yeah. It's almost like you really need to gamble on the ball. But what I really respected about McDonald about the entire drive was he really understood it wasn't just a matter of the defense was tired, he really understood that you have to gamble to stop 4-down football, especially when you're defending field goal position, which is not very far in the end. It's like basically defending the 40-yard line.
Right.
And that's just too damn easy to move, between the 20s in the NFL now. A lot of stops occur because the field starts to get small near the goal line in the red zone and whatnot. But, if you're really trying to defend the 40-yard line, it's very difficult. And it's super difficult when the other team has 4 downs to work with. That's just a much easier proposition.
It's so important when you're on those last drives, is to have a great pass rusher that can get a sack, force that fumble. I mean, or even just hit the quarterback to force an incompletion to, potentially get the offense off schedule. Because 4 down, especially in this day and age where you can't touch receivers, can't beat them up on the line anymore. It's so hard to defend four passes like that. And two completions of 5 yards, which is nothing, gets you a first down every time. And so quarterback could literally go 2 for 4 for 10 yards and keep moving the chains down the line. So
right.
Yeah,
it's a lot too easy, not just a little too easy. And anyway, one of those things. Game got away on that. The game got away, honestly, I thought, on offense on 2 plays. Now, they had a very, very nice run for, I think, 24 yards from Brown where he ran right. He's got to go down inbounds there. That would have run another 40 seconds off the clock, and it would have made the difference, I think, in this game. Although at least it would have put more pressure on for a different sort of a confrontation on the final drive. It would have changed it. The other thing is the very next play, Wright ran left, and I don't know if it was even that good a run, maybe 4 yards or something, but he gets pushed out of bounds too. And he was aware of it. He wanted to go down in bounds. He just couldn't do it. And it's like, you got to find a way on both of those plays to get down in bounds. And a minute and a half would have rolled off, or they would have had to start calling their timeouts or something, because that would have been a mess. The other thing was, I thought that the first 3rd down of the drive, there was still a chance that they would punt because they had all 3 of their timeouts. So that was a chance to try and play 3-down football against them still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think, with Brown, I think that's just something he's got to learn. He's a young quarterback. And same with the running backs. They're young. They got to learn to just get down. It's not worth an extra yard or 2 if you get pushed out of bounds, just to go down. And it's just situational awareness. That's something that I'm sure that they've got talked to in the meetings today.
Yeah. It's something that I wonder if you can't give them any printed materials, but you could maybe give them something on an iPad or something where it would be hard for them to give away the information, because you don't want anybody taking this information from organization to organization, but give them some information on situational awareness that makes players understand when it's a good idea to kneel and not score a touchdown. Other things like that. It's like, learn this basic set of rules, but also by learning this set of rules, you're also cattle prodded to ask the question at any point in time where you think it might be a question. So you're up a point. Is it worth scoring a touchdown ever? Well, the answer is probably no. The answer is probably that if you can run out the clock, you'd much rather do that. It's just a certain number of game situations that you could ask players to learn for themselves.
Also, the head coach or the offensive coordinator, when they're calling in the plays, say, if you get a first down, get down. Don't score a touchdown. Say something to remind the quarterback, so the quarterback can remind the players.
All you need is a safe word, right? Geronimo or whatever it might be is a safe word on nobody scores on this play. You can call that right in the huddle, and everybody should know what it means and hopefully not make a mistake. And the Ravens won a game at Chicago a couple of years ago because of that sort of a failure. The Chicago receiver didn't go down where it would have been a kneel kick situation for the win, just about a sure thing for a win at that point. But instead, scores a touchdown, and the Ravens have a chance to come back, and they did. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So one thing I always like to look at in the preseason is the order of deployment at various positions and what it tells us for this game. So this was an interesting one, I thought. Position by position, we had a variety of interesting things. I'll start on the defensive line, where the Ravens started Brent Urban. He played only 2 series. They started Blackson, and he played only part. I'm sorry, Urban played 3 series. Blackson also played 3 series. Angelo Blackson. And
Mm-hmm.
they had Nichols in there pretty much from the beginning, and they had Travis Jones in there for 4 series. But what do you think? What would you interpret that for Urban and Blackson? How would you interpret that? I know I've got my feeling about this, but
Yeah. I think I think Urban's definitely going to be on the roster week one.
mhm,
They might do some they they like to play the tricks where they release a player and then sign them,
mhm. Handshake
a
deal.
couple of days later, yeah, to bring them back. Blackson might also be in that situation as well. I was kind of surprised that he wasn't playing more, especially considering it just didn't look like they were playing a lot of different defensive linemen that he would have kept
Mhm.
him in. So he might be in the same situation where he gets released and then comes back, yeah, a week or two later. I mean, I'm sorry, a couple of days later. Yeah.
I looked at it and I said, this really seems like both of them are going to make the team. Not just one, but both of them are going to make the team. Because if you really wanted to say Urban's ahead of Blackson, and I think that's been probably the truth in terms of their play, although neither of them has been bad. They've both been very clearly the fifth and sixth best defensive lineman on this team. So they deserve it from that standpoint. But if you could easily favor one. And they don't have any problem with the Simpson Salah thing now favoring Simpson over Salah. So why would you have a problem just letting Blackson and Urban know where they stand relative to each other and play Blackson, I would presume, for the full first half, say, instead of the only for 3 drives?
Yeah. I like I said, I was surprised he didn't play more.
Mm-hmm.
So and I really can't answer that. It's trade secrets, I guess, for the
Yeah.
Ravens. Yeah.
But I would agree with you. Both those guys probably likely handshake deals, and they're 2 of about 4 guys on the whole roster who are easy handshake deals. They've got other players that it would be maybe more difficult or maybe less likely to make the team or whatever, but those 2 guys are fairly easy ones. All right. Let's keep talking here. On the outside linebacker, we saw a little bit of Ajabo early on, only about 15 snaps. We'll talk a little bit about Ajabo's actual play a little bit later. But any surprise, first of all, that he's in there for 15 snaps?
Not really. Like he hasn't played a lot of football in the NFL level yet, and him needing to just get reps against other teams and get reps again. And I think it was an advantage for him that Washington played their starters for so long. Is
Mhm.
he got first team reps against Washington there? So him being able to go against the starting caliber tackles and get some reps is important, and I think it's good for his development. Yeah.
Inside linebacker, kind of an interesting development as we go along here. It seems like Delshon Phillips, who's had an incredible heater at camp, just he's making play after play, day after day at camp. A whole bunch of turnovers, whole bunch of passes defensed, and other things. I mean, he's around the ball all the time. He started the game with Malik Harrison. So Ravens have a little bit of an unusual situation because Trenton Simpson just got his first play tonight. But those 2 guys getting an early exit, early retirement for the night, indicates to me that Delshon and Malik, neither of whom was a guarantee to me, are both going to make the team.
Yeah, I think Malik is probably a definite. He's a key special teams player also. Um, yeah, Delshon not playing a lot. is again another pretty big surprise. I wonder if maybe they're not playing him, so they're not showcasing him, so that they can get him back on the practice squad, and keep him on the practice squad and be an elevation here and there, or if he's gonna make the team right off the bat is interesting. But like, yeah, like I think reports come like every almost every day, every other day he's making an interception or a forced fumble or
Mhm.
a big play, and maybe you just want to hide that because you don't want to you want to get him through to your practice squad. Yeah.
Might work. He's a fourth year player. So if you cut him, he goes through waivers. He isn't like a vested veteran who doesn't go through waivers. So he can't be, first of all, not a reasonable handshake candidate if you have to get him to clear waivers with what he's done. If he's a fifth or sixth, if he were a fifth year player, it actually might be a better situation for the Ravens, which is not very rarely true, but this is one specific instance where it might be better if you were at a year of additional tenure in the league here, just for this reason. But he's got to go through waivers. So I something tells me with Malik and him, unless the Ravens trade a linebacker, or maybe especially if they trade a linebacker, both of them are making it. And I kind of am thinking, if you look at this roster in terms of where the depth is, that the only place where they have enough of a surplus of talent to make a trade, maybe the offensive line, maybe inside linebacker.
Potentially, yeah. And I guess Patrick Queen would probably be the number one potential trade chip for them, for somebody. You would guess that they would trade him for probably a cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting to see. I don't know if you see that many player for player trades at the beginning of the season like that, but it there's always that possibility. And if they could get a decent corner, that would help immensely.
So here would be my proposal along those lines: is the Eagles just had an unexpected retirement from Miles Jack.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles are certifiably very deep at corner, including a rookie who I really liked in the draft, who wasn't drafted till the fourth round, Kelly Ringo. And he's my number 5 overall cornerback on my list. And there was a little bit of health concern and whatnot. I'm forgetting exactly what it was, but number 5 on my list. Michael Crawford did that particular show with me. He also had him at exactly number 5. So, one of the guys that a lot of people would really like. They have Eli Ricks. He went undrafted. Would it even be a possibility you could get both of those players in exchange for Patrick Queen? Because it seems like a 4th round draft pick for Patrick Queen would not be a stretch at all. I wouldn't think.
Probably not.
Probably not. And then if you're going to get a 4th round pick, why not get a 4th and not undrafted if the Eagles are so deep that Ricks is going to be somewhere landing on the practice squad anyway, potentially. And both those guys for sure make the Ravens. And probably Ringo is a guy you take your chance, you roll the dice with in the first year, even if it doesn't work out, you take the chance developmentally.
Yeah. How's Ringo been playing in the preseason so far?
I mean, I think he was pretty good against the Ravens, and we know that Ricks was really good against the Ravens. He had the pick 6. So I think both of them. Ricks looks like a back end cover 3 patient spider kind of quarterback. Likes to Marcus Peters like. Ringo is more physical, fast. Also, I think he's a 4.35 guy. So a lot of things to like there. And it could be the Eagles say, no, he's healthy now. We know better. Now we know he has that 2nd round value or whatever we would have placed on him if we thought the injury was a problem. If we didn't think the injury was a problem. But you can't have him for Patrick Queen now. That's too much, because that's 1 year of Queen for 4 years of Ringo is the way they're looking at it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Would the Ravens take a chance of trading, a pretty well established veteran linebacker that they know kind of that they're getting, above average to very
Mhm.
good play for kind of an unknown rookie, or would they be looking for maybe a more established corner that's a veteran, 2 or 3, maybe a modest contract, something like that from another team, or
Film Study is brought to you by Factor. With the busy fall season just around the corner, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for those jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Then get back to crushing your goals. Refresh your healthy habits without missing a beat. And with Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. We offset 100% of our delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in all of our meals. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door and ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/ravens50 and use code ravens50 to get that 50% off. That's code ravens50 at factormeals.com/ravens50 to get 50% off.
something like that as well. Yeah.
And try and get it for cheaper, obviously, if they're doing that, you're saying. So, that's the guy. If you're trading Ben Cleveland, you might get this other guy you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think all options are on the table. They certainly don't want to be wed to any particular corner. What I will say about the Ravens and trading Patrick Queen, or for that matter, really trading any inside linebacker, is it really reflexibilizes the defense to trade Patrick Queen, because right now they've locked themselves into this committed nickel situation, which I personally don't like. It means you have a linebacker on the field, on 2 linebackers on the field, always on 3rd down. And that's always a concession to coverage to do that. Now, if you have 2 great linebackers, that's okay. But if you're not stuck with the situation, you really might be better off platooning there, where you get really good coverage on passing downs and really good run defense on other downs. And they could do that with the players they have by moving any of their safety depth, frankly, into that dime back role.
Yeah.
And probably using Malik Harrison as a weak side backer, or moving Trenton Simpson in and giving him a chance earlier in his career than was expected. He might not be ready, but it'd be another option, but it gives them a flexible set of solutions to their problems, as opposed to Patrick Queen is going to be out there every single play.
Sure. And I'll just say, if you could get Kyle Hamilton into that dime role somehow, yeah. I'd love to see that. But yeah.
They've got a lot of players who could fit the dime role right now. Stone could do it, although Stone, I think, was being more of a free safety. Lucian could do it. Worley, I think, could do it after this game. So they've got quite a set of potential solutions there now. Stevens might be a guy who ends up at dime at some point in his career, although I think this year they need him at outside corner so badly they're not going to change that, which is probably what we should talk about next. Oh, no, wait. We got to talk more about inside linebackers. So you got 3 inside linebackers who came in and then split the time, and they had mix and match with all 3 of these combinations between Simpson, Welch, and Ross. And so every one of those 3 the 3 possible combinations of those 3 were on the field at some point, and they had 2 inside linebackers on the field every single play of the game. Yeah. So if you're Ross or Welch, neither of whom is playing badly, how do you look at your situation here? The team has 2 inside linebackers who are starting and they're bubble wrapped. They have 2 other inside linebackers who are starting ahead of you, played only the first 2 series and then retired. Then you have 3 linebackers who are getting equal shrift, and one of them is your 3rd round draft pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Welch and Ross are playing for a roster spot on another team. I think that's what they're looking for. I mean, possibly also practice squad with us, but they're trying to showcase for other teams as well. Yeah.
Now, so Welch is a 4th-year player. I think his chances to make the team were kind of remote to start with, but in terms of Ross, He's a second-year player now, so the clock started ticking on him, I guess, with the injury last year. In any case, he's in the second year of 4 years of his initial deal. So some of the sand has already run out of the hourglass. We'll talk about his play last night a little bit later, but he's a guy that I would think you really want to make a decision on this camp, whether he's maybe your fifth inside linebacker, and it's him versus Harrison or Phillips for the last spot, with Simpson definitely making it and the big two definitely making it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or you try and put him on the practice squad. It very well might not work because he has some good tape now between last preseason in particular and this preseason, less so probably, but still something. There aren't a lot of claims league-wide on players. And I have kind of a theory about this, that the other teams, every team in the National Football League just lacks the scouting bandwidth to really look at every other team's every player.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, what is it? 90 players on a roster and times 32. What is it? It's
2,700.
2,700 players that are playing right now, and there's just no way. So a lot of the players that teams look at are guys that they were interested in as either rookies. They liked them coming out of college, and like, oh, now we have a chance to sign him, or now he passed on us as an undrafted, but now we have a chance to pick him up. So that's a lot of what's going on there. Yeah,
they're going off what they had in scouting going into the draft, and you could maybe cut that because there's a whole lot of players who are going to be on a roster, and there's a bunch you probably think you're not going to get, or there's a bunch maybe that you're too low in the batting order to pick these guys that there's any real chance that you'd get them. You still want to put the claim in, but you don't really think there's a lot of chance of getting them. So maybe it's only 1,000 players. That's still an unbelievable amount of work to really make a decision relative to your own guys. Yeah. And that's why we get only, I think it's something like 12 to 16 kind of claims per season. So it's only about on cut down or the day after cut down day, I guess it is. So it's only really a handful league wide. Maybe about half a player per team is lost during the cut process.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to cornerback, where I thought it was fairly interesting. Stevens and Seymour, after playing pretty much 3/4 of the game in the first week, now seem to be getting very much the starter treatment in the second week. So they left after 2 drives, and they were out of there for the game. Seymour played quite well. Stevens played quite well in the first week, wasn't really targeted. I think they give up 1 13-yard catch in this game, but wasn't really targeted much in this game. Seems like the Ravens are ready to roll with these guys week 1 if need be.
Yeah, it's looking like they know that they're going to need both of them week 1 with Humphrey obviously out, and I guess we're going to see how far along Darby is. I mean, he's missed 3/4 of camp. It's totally possible that he may or may not be fully recovered and fully ready to go week 1. So.
He was on the field for 11 on 11s on the 18th when I was last there. So he's out there playing. He was wearing 33 that day, which was kind of weird because he and Swan were both listed as 33 on the roster. And Swan, I think, was released maybe right after the roster was created. Anyway, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, even, looking at the depth, especially at outside corner, I mean, they're really the next ones up. If assuming Rock Ya-Sin is back and he's healthy and he's ready to go, it's going to be him and Darby, and if one of them goes down, it's going to be Stevens and Seymour that are first up. So, yeah.
So they're the 4th and 5th outside corners, we hope, on opening day. And Darby, we assume, is going to play on the outside and not in the slot. Darby had a little bit of slot play. He actually took Kyle Fuller's spot when he got benched at Denver the last time he played 2 years ago. So But anyway, I would presume, I think, as you're pointing out, that Darby is likely to play on the outside. He's kind of a tweener in terms of size by today's standards at 5'11", kind of not quite tall enough to play on the outside by today's standards. 5'11" was plenty tall enough to play for a lot of years in the National Football League, but
right.
It's a little bit smallish right now with all the guys that are 6 feet and up. And a little big for the slot, still at 5'11". You have a lot of smaller guys that play there, and change of direction is at such a premium. Mm-hmm. Based on what we've seen, do you think Ardarius Washington starts the season in the slot, or would you bet on Hamilton moving up, or some other thing happening?
The way Ardarius played yesterday, I think I feel confident that giving him that opportunity to at least start there. And you've been trying to move Kyle to, the safety role and let him star and shine there. It's do your best to try to keep him out there and let Ardarius just, get the start. And if he's just overmatched, then you make the adjustment. But give him that at least that initial opportunity, because he really played well yesterday.
Yeah, I'm on board totally with that as the plan to start with. It just seems like every single move on the chessboard, or every single piece of news, drives Kyle Hamilton. Like, the gravitational pull on slot corner on Kyle Hamilton is very high right now. It's just, they really do. They free up, more talent to be played at safety, where talent is going to kind of get wasted by the fact that the Ravens are a committed nickel team to play on the back end. You have this incredible game from Worley in week 1. You have a good game, I thought, from Lucien, but also a pretty good game from Houston Carson in week 2, who's a longtime vet. Now, there's not necessarily a place on the team for Houston Carson, but there could be potentially. And you've got other guys who can fill at safety. Obviously, we talked about Geno Stone. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a Geno Stone at strong safety to play, a split in a cover 2. I think he's more suited to free safety, but I love having 2 free safeties on the field. I don't mind that. What I don't want to have is 2 strong safeties on the field.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So after those guys at corner, then we got a long look at Caillou Kelly, who only got 17 snaps in that first game. And we got a long look at Corey Mayfield, who we're going to talk about it, but he had a tough day. And
both of them did. Yeah.
And the guy who came in the second half, Tay Hayes, actually probably outshined both of them pretty significantly.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He had that interception, and he was out there and he played pretty well. Like, they didn't target him that much. And he was tough in coverage, and had an interception, and a really impressive interception. Diving like that is not an easy catch. So to be able to make that catch is, it was a really nice play. Yeah.
They threw at Tay Hayes twice during the game, interception, and he took the guy down for a loss of 1. Those are the 2 times they targeted in the game. That's a hell of a game when the other team is throwing the ball 55 times. And I think it was 28 in the second half, and he avoids targets. Now, I it's fairly obvious what the Commanders were trying to do in that second half, but still, there ought to be a swear jar or something I have to put into for the number of times I've done that. Anyway, let's move on to safety. Talk a little bit about that. So Worley played the entire game the previous week, had all those big plays. High leverage.
And the star of preseason last week, and he wasn't out there. He didn't play a single snap, did he?
No, he played the first 3 drives he played, and then he got pulled.
Okay.
So
I didn't see him out there. Yeah, but okay, yeah.
But it still seemed like, if it was an unusual situation, but they did have a new guy in house. So DeAndre Houston Carson, I have to get those always in the correct word. The DeAndre I'm always sure about. It's the Houston Carson one that I sometimes mess up and get reversed. But he's the one who recovered the fumble. He played the back end, did have some issues that we'll talk a little bit about in the individual notes, but He was a guy, and he's an 8-year veteran. So if you want the most Worley-esque player out there at the end of the game, it's him, by the way, because Worley, also an 8-year veteran, was like playing with a bunch of 7th graders last week in that final drive and getting his chances to exactly read the mind of probably the opposing quarterback at that point. It was Book, right? Book was the last guy on the field. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, anyway, the guy who came in with Houston Carson when he came in was Jeremy Lucien, and he played the rest of the game on the back end with him. Had the pleasure to talk to Jeremy Lucien today. Now, I've just posted the interview on this right before we recorded the show, so by the time you listen to this, you'll have a chance to go back and download that Jeremy Lucien interview. It's a very interesting profile. Guy, mechanical engineer, first of all, very sharp, tremendous entrepreneurial spirit, very well grounded in terms of what's going on. And he seems to be appropriately cheap for a rookie in the National Football League, I'll call him. And I mean that in a very good way. Appropriately frugal. Let's use the upscale term for that. He eats all of his meals at the castle. Doesn't want to get wrapped up with a roommate because of 2 things. One is he can stay in the hotel for some longer period, the team hotel, before they kick him out. So we won't have to get an apartment for a little while for that. So his exact words were, "I need to milk this hotel thing a little longer." So I love that. And then the other thing he said was that aside from eating all his meals at the castle, was that he doesn't want to have a roommate because of the possibility of getting tied up in one of them getting caught and not being around, the potential for non-payment of rent, and this, that. Just very well grounded in terms of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sounds like a good conversation. Yeah,
it was a good conversation. Definitely worth listening to because he's really talks through the UDFA experience. I hope people give that a try a little bit about how the phone calls go and what his strategy was going into these phone calls and things like that. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lucien went in there, and I thought he played pretty well as well. Gave the Ravens another option at safety. Does he end up on the practice squad with what the Ravens have in terms of safety depth?
It's possible. Yeah. I think maybe it's a long shot for him to make the 53, but so he certainly, he showed a little something. He had a nice pass breakup in the 4th quarter, and I think he led the team in tackles as well. So those are some positives, but practice squad is, where his most likely landing spot. It's probably not the 53.
So give me your handicapping the situation. Probability of being on the 53, probability of the practice squad, probability of cut and not offered a practice squad spot. I'm going to write down my numbers right now because I want to remember this while I do this.
Okay.
That's too bad. Okay, I've got mine.
Okay.
I think these are all mutually exclusive and universal, right? I mean, they cover the entire universe of possibilities. So they should sum to 1. Okay, so what's your probability for the 3 of us?
Okay, so I have 3% of him making the actual 53-man roster.
Okay.
I have 38% of him making the practice squad, and then the other 59% of him being outright released.
Outright released. Okay. I think his chances are much better than that because of what I've heard on this interview in part, but also what I've seen in play from 2 times. I'd say 15% chance to make the squad. And the reason I think it's that high is that there's still some injury risk to happen for the Ravens. And it won't be to their top players, but it doesn't have to be to their top players. They already got kind of nobody at slot corner. If Hamilton goes to slot corner, then all of a sudden you probably want 4 safeties in addition to Hamilton. And Lucien is looking a lot better in terms of where he might be. So that would be his major possibility of getting on the roster. And we don't know how serious the injury to Washington is right now. He left the game after that pass breakup on the 3rd to last play of the game, I think.
Yeah, They said it. He just got the wind knocked out of him.
Thank
So
goodness.
hopefully,
Oof.
yeah, hopefully it's nothing. Yeah, it was nothing else. But yeah, that's what they said.
Okay, very good. And is that a Harbaugh quote?
I think it was Harbaugh, but
Damn.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because usually it's nobody else will speak to injuries, but I wish it were somebody more credible than that in terms of him telling me it was okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
So I said his practice squad shot. I would say 75% because I think the Ravens are going to probably go heavy at DB with what they have, and then I think there's about a 10% chance for an outright release. So we have a very different feeling on this, but that's all right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, fair enough. So that takes
Yeah.
that takes us through most of the players in terms of what's going on. This is not really a shock, but given that you're going to bring out the 8-man pass rush, what is it, 4 or 5 times, however many they do that in a 7-man pass rush in addition to that, wouldn't you think you'd be willing to also change your packages at the end of the game? So you got totally tired out front seven. Could somebody else come back in the game, a Worley maybe at the end of the game who could really help you? Maybe not because he probably took a shell off at halftime, right? And then
I'm guessing once they remove players, they're probably, you don't want to put them back in because they're a little bit checked out mentally as well. So yeah.
I'm sure that plays into it. Of course, it's a preseason game, and anyway, if it was really the most meaningful game of all, you would also, and I'm not saying it's meaningless, but if it was the most meaningful, you'd do things other than just varying your pass rush with the same players, effectively just stirring the same drink around, and change your actual packages that you put in the game, change your actual players that you put in the game towards the end. And obviously they didn't really want to do that. They wanted to stick with it.
I'll just say I'll give Harbaugh some credit for staying disciplined. They probably went into a plan for this preseason that this is what they're going to do. That this is how many plays every player is going to play, and they didn't deviate to try to get this one stop on the last drive. So I'll give them some credit for that. But yeah, like I think there's certainly in a more meaningful game that they're changing things up than what they were doing at the last second there.
Well, that is one of the cool things is we're going to look at McDonald's defense in the week one. And I don't know exactly what we're going to get, but we're going to get some surprise because almost every year there is some surprise in terms of a new combination of players that we see that we don't really ever see otherwise. And so I've got some ideas on things they might do, but all they played is base and nickel so far in 2 games. That is all they have played. 2 inside linebackers on the field every single play so far. I think they might have had 1 play without 2 outside linebackers, on the field this last week, or maybe it was just a categorization of a player that was different. But I added up all the snaps for outside linebacker, and it was like 1 off from exactly 2 per play. So it was surprising to me. So I'm not sure what it might be, but it might have been they had a defensive lineman playing the edge on some play. Yeah,
that sounds probably what happened. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I want to talk about in this game, and something that seems to be a bugaboo for the Ravens, is they're missing a lot of tackles, an awful lot of tackles. And they missed 15 more in this game by the PFF count. Now, one thing I always like to say about missed tackles is they can be defined very differently because if you just miss an ankle tackle where you had to dive to make it, is that a missed tackle? Well, here's what I would say. Yeah. I'm not going to get too much into the definition of what a missed tackle is. I'm going to say I'm going to let PFF do the defining for us because I trust them to use a uniform definition from week to week. And the Ravens have missed 17.4% of their tackles this preseason, which ain't going to cut it. That wouldn't be good for any positional group.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Last year, 12.5%. for the whole year. So maybe that doesn't even seem like it's as bad as it really is because I think a lot of it's occurring in the secondary. I know Worley has a bunch of missed tackles and Houston Carson had some this week. So it's been a variety of different players, but there's probably been an overweight to the secondary in terms of where these are occurring.
Yeah, I think part of it, you see a lot of missed tackles on a lot of the running plays. Linebackers just aren't filling the holes as much, and that's making it harder for defensive backs to bring them down. And defensive line, aside from Jones, hasn't been, as dominant as we're used to seeing with the Ravens. So, it's all a combination. I'm not too worried about it as long as none of these players are going to be playing significant snaps during the season. But yeah, it is something to look at. Yeah.
All right. Well, a good point that, hey, if it's your 2s and 3s that are missing tackles, maybe you don't worry about it as much. It is mostly that. Rashad Nichols had kind of a bad game in terms of missed tackles on the defensive line. That's very unusual for defensive linemen. Miss a lot fewer tackles for whatever reason. They're bigger, they're stronger, they tend to hold on to things and take them down. I bet that was always your way of doing business, right? Back in the day.
Yeah.
And, anyway, that's. I'm not yet worried about the missed tackle, but if they have a situation like the Ravens did a few years ago where they're just missing tackles willy-nilly in the secondary, it'll be something they have to try and fix, and it might be something they have to fix in terms of personnel as well. The one guy who's had the biggest missed tackle problems is going to be playing every snap, and he's probably will have less playing with Roquan. And he had a few less before even Roquan showed up last year. So don't want to bash him too much on this, but he's got a bad career missed tackle rate that's up towards the overall rate of missed tackles the Ravens have had this preseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you also think about it in the team defense aspect, like these players haven't been playing a lot with each other very much. So, when you're playing team defense, one player's causing an angle which directs the runner to a different place, and another either linebacker or defensive back comes in, makes that tackle or cleans it up. So there's a lot of team aspect in tackling and getting a defender down that a lot of times with second and third team players that are being mixed and matched constantly, they're more 11 individuals out there playing than as one cohesive unit, and that can contribute to it as well.
The things you said, I want to dig into that a little bit because it's a very interesting comment. And first of all, I agree with you entirely that if you understand how your teammate is going to play leverage on a particular play, it gives you a better chance to be in the right position as second man to the carrier to make that tackle. So I agree with that entirely. I think that's a very good point. I kind of wondered if where you were starting, it sounded like my kind of regular comment that there are missed tackles and there are missed tackles. And if you retrack the running back and turn him 90 degrees from going straight north and south to going east and west, all of a sudden that has real value.
That's a good missed tackle.
Yeah, that's a good missed tackle.
Even if you don't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, in fact, some of the missed tackles on the sacks have not this week, but in previous weeks have been really good missed tackles. For instance, Worley last week, I think he missed a sack -5, and then he chased the guy on the quarterback for a sack -21.
Mm-hmm.
So hard to get too upset about that particular one.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Yep. It is. You know what? It's worthy of a study of its own sort, where missed tackles were sorted into different categories. And there is somebody who I meant to talk to who has already done this. And I think he did it for either, I forget if it's a high school or a not Division I college program, but whichever it is, it'd still be a very interesting topic to just go through his information in terms of, what does it mean when A and B and C happen in terms of categorizing tackles.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Brandon, always a pleasure to talk football with you. We're going to come back and talk part 2, and we'll get into the individual players when we come right back. Tell folks in the meantime, though, where can they talk football with you online?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Brandon Croxton 5, and yeah, love to talk Ravens. So hit me up.
All right, outstanding. And just I met Brandon by doing a film study short, I believe, originally, and he's probably been on at least half a dozen times by now, right? Maybe more than that. But anyway,
yeah, something right around there. Yeah,
regular guy returning. He'll do, I'm sure, a game or two this year, and I want to meet you if you're out there. So hit me up with a DM on Twitter if you have a film study short idea. I'll try and get back to you right away. We'll have a discussion about it and see if there's an episode that we can have a nice little back and forth about some topic of interest, a thought experiment, whatever it might be, a GM perspective on things, of value perspective. It could be a technical issue, could be a lot of things, but give me your idea and we'll talk through it. So Brandon, really appreciate having you on.
All right, great. Yeah, it's always great to be here.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study. Okay, I will post this break in here and then we'll start again. Do you need a trip to the bathroom or anything? Because I kind of could use one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be back in like 2-3 minutes.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Okay.